Ismet speeches in January 1923, he is more or less has the same view as Mahmoud Şevket Pasha. He's not really considering of taking Western Thrace because he's thinking geopolitically and he's also thinking legally when it comes to the agreement that has been made earlier on. Further developments happened because, to a certain degree, because of these irregular forces that were sabotaging the Greeks in the area. You had the exile of about 10,000 Bulgarians. They were sent to Crete, to Thessalia, and to some of the other islands in order to clear them out. Here you always have the problem of the national historiographies, because in Bulgaria it will be seen as, you know, like an anti-Bulgarian measure from a nationalist standpoint, while it is other factors also involved, like I said, with guerrilla activity going on at the time. And it also ends up with that Bulgarians really leave the area in 1925, except for some who stay on declaring themselves to be Greek. So, during this period under scrutiny, the fortunes of Western Thrace changed according to wars and diplomatic development, where really the local population was not taken into account very much at all. And this happened at a time with very large demographic changes in each turn of events. And in the case of Western Thrace, all these changes, though, proved ephemeral, and only after the Lausanne and the massive settlement of refugees, then the area started to take on the character as we know today.
Okay, thank you for your nice presentation. İkinci konuşmacımız Lambros Balçivadis, Pantheon Üniversitesi'nde Atina, Balkanlardaki azınlıklar tarihi alanında yardımcı doçent. Araştırma ve ilgi alanları ve yayınları, Balkanlardaki azınlıklar, dilsel ve dini gruplar, göç, vatandaşlık ve milliyetçilik üzerine yoğunlaşmaktadır. Buyurun.
Tam ekran yapabilir misin?
Thank you very much. During the early 20th century, Greece became host country of many different population groups, most of them classified by the Greek state as homogenes, of the same genus, a word quite similar to the Turkish soydaş, roughly meaning co-ethnic individuals or groups. Of course, these groups have to be Greek Orthodox, have to have Greek Orthodox affiliation, but they were speaking many different languages. In fact, all Balkan languages. From 1906 on, several thousand Greek Orthodox who did not identify themselves with the Bulgarian Exarchate, the Bulgarian Church, took refuge or migrated to Greece. During this or the next decade, other Greeks from Yugoslavia and Albania migrated also to Greece. Their numbers, though, are limited to a few thousands at that period. Of course, we have other groups like White Russians, Armenians, Jews from Eastern Thrace, who also settled in Greece before early 1923. And it is well known that a mass movement of Greek Orthodox from the Ottoman Empire, we may classify them as refugees or immigrants, initiated in 1914. Accordingly, many Muslims from certain areas of Macedonia Accordingly, many Muslims from certain areas of Macedonia, primarily from Drama, were in fact expelled from Greece. I'd like to note here that some hundreds of Assyrians, that means adherents of the Assyrian Church of the East, often called Nestorians, made it to Greece. They were originating from Van district in this today's borderline between Turkey and Iraq, and via Soviet Union they settled in Greece. It is well known that the biggest group by far which settled in Greece in the 20s and was not included in the population exchange was the Armenian, most of them Gregorian Christians with a few Catholics and Protestants. According to the Lausanne Agreement and the various legal texts that followed, those who included in the population exchange were Greek, Orthodox and Muslims holding the citizenship of the country they were moving from. The agreement would be implemented within the borders of the two states as they were defined by the Lausanne Treaty of July 1923 and not in the former Ottoman territories. The persons had to be residents of these areas. Those who were residents of Istanbul were included in the population exchange if they were settled after October 1918. Anyway, on the contrary to Western Thrace, the time limit moves some years, it goes to January 1923. According to the decision of the Mixed Commission of December 1927, only Greek Orthodox of the Patriarchate of Constantinople were included in the population exchange. Thus, all the Greek Orthodox under other patriarchates or churches were excluded. For example, the Bulgarian, the Russian, the Cyprus Church, and so on. Istanbul Prefecture was defined after the 1912 Ottoman legislation, the territory of the Istanbul Prefecture, and Western Thrace after the Bucharest Treaty of 1913. This has an importance for Yenikoi, Stavroupoli, today's Stavroupoli, which was emptied from Muslim population. From the various provisions of the agreement, I mentioned that the one that denies the right of return or considers as established to those who had migrated in a clandestine way before. So, considering the Istanbul established and the Western Thrace established. So, the first criterion, citizenship. Persons or families belonging to these two religious groups that were not Greek or Turkish citizens were excluded from the population exchange. In fact, these provisions affected mostly Greece, as this was an issue involving a few hundred families, some of them wealthy, who could claim Albanian, Serbian, other European, or whatever you can imagine, for example, Egyptian or of course, even Turkish citizenship. In the Turkish case, the numbers were much lower, and I have not come across with more than some dozens, let's say, of cases. For example, persons of Russian or Greek Orthodox of Russian citizenship in Trebizond or European citizenship in Izmir. My research concerning Greek citizens who remained in Turkey after 1926 is far from complete, but in Cilicia, that I know, there are no indications that more than half a dozen, very few, very low numbers remained. On the contrary, we know of some families of Turkish citizenship who remained in Greece in urban centers like Thessaloniki. For the Greek state, the Albanian or Greek nationality of a few hundred families, possibly a few thousand persons, was a major issue of concern for the years to come, and in some cases, the administrative and juridical conflicts ended up at late 30s or never ended, because it was a huge area that you can find these Albanian citizens from Alassona and Karditsa, Epirus, Macedonia, Thessaloniki, a lot of them. The Greek-Albanian Citizenship Convention of 1926, ratified in October 1828, was supposed to clarify the chaotic situation, but in fact, most of the Muslims were under investigation for many years. Greek authorities were initially eager to identify the refugees, the Greek Orthodox refugees who were Greek citizens, and exclude them from the benefits of the special policies which were legislated for the exchanges. However, in some cases later on, they often turned a blind eye. I skipped the opting of the Ottoman citizenship, which was another issue related with the population exchange, affected many families because they have the option for the Ottoman citizenship after the Balkan Wars, but in some cases they opted against the Greek authorities, but they didn't go on with the procedure with the Ottoman authorities, the Ottoman consulates. This was a strategy of some communities, Muslim communities, to be in a limbo. Anyway, I skipped that. I'm going to Albanian origins, which is another case of excluding of the population exchange. Altogether, some 3, 4. Although the case of Muslim Chams is well known, they were not included in the population exchange. The case of other remaining Muslims of Albanian origin is sometimes confused. So we have Albanian citizenship. That means I'm excluded from the population exchange because I have an Albanian citizenship. That's a different, because I have Albanian origin. Chams, okay, they were not included in the population exchange, but they had to be residents of certain Kazas, ex-Kazas, Filat, Margelets, Margariti, Goumenitsa, and Aidonat, Paramithia, today's Paramithia. Greek state in the period